illusion and close your eyes and just stay tight. We have to go. Stay with me while we leave. Don't worry, just believe me. This journey will relieve us. Stay with me while we leave. Stay with me. It wouldn't be right to say this for the place where we live with certain bliss. For fire makes the city look so bright. Close your eyes and just stay tight. We have to go. Stay with me while we leave. Don't worry, just believe me. This journey will relieve us. Stay with me while we leave. Stay with me. It wouldn't be right to say this for the place where we live with certain bliss. Wouldn't Close your eyes and just stay tight.